Hi, I'm Dr. Boyce Watkins. Welcome to Financial Lovemaking, where we talk about love, life, money, and everything in between. I'm here with my buddy, partner, and co-host, Miss S. Tia Brown. How you doing today, Tia?
I'm doing well. Excited to talk to you as always. Today's topic is sad, but also a little interesting.
Mm.
Tell the folks what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, well, Apollo Nida, Phaedra Parks' pretty beautiful husband is
Hater.
gonna be a pretty beautiful inmate, I guess. He's going to prison for 8 years, which is just like, man. But actually, he got off easy. The judge could have given him 30 years,
I know.
but
That's
he gave
crazy.
him 8. I mean, I think that's huge for him. He was convicted of fraud. He was, from what I understand, taking social security numbers and getting loans in the names of fake companies, and then depositing that money into fake bank accounts, and just committing all kinds of financial fraud, which is a pretty easy way to get a lot of time in prison, right?
This
I
was a
mean,
very elaborate scheme, and it's really sad because Apollo's prior conviction was a fraud as well, auto title fraud, I believe. And we always want to hope that when someone goes to prison, there's some reforming that's done, and then you get a fair chance to live your best life. And Apollo had the ex-con's dream. He got married to not only a rich woman, but a woman who became famous shortly thereafter. So you were really living the life. Now, ironically, one of the things that Apollo claims is that living the life created this pressure for him to go back to scheming.
hmm.
Said, he felt like, he needed more money to be able to maintain the lifestyle. Judges felt not so much. There are other ways to get money. So,
Interesting. So because I have more money, I feel the need to go earn more money. That's what he's saying?
I think it's, remember his wife was the primary breadwinner. The men on his wife is Phaedra Parks from the Real Housewives of Atlanta, and the men have been very vocal in saying that the women are the parties that get the paychecks, and the women are the folks that really get the lion's share of the fame. However, we know specifically with the Atlanta cast, the men get so much more shine. Now, there are about 8 franchises in the Real Housewives brand, and Atlanta is the #1 brand. Additionally, the men have had spin-off businesses. You've seen Peter Thomas doing a restaurant and a bar. Apollo did an exercise video with his wife. So he could have had a
Is
thriving.
that the one that they didn't do the one called Donkey Booty, did they?
I don't think the final name of that video was Donkey Booty, but it was very much around that whole brand concept of kind of how to
Hmm.
get your everyday body in shape.
Hmm.
Now these might not have been million-dollar endeavors, but they're definitely ways to create streams of revenue. In addition, Apollo's wife started a funeral parlor business. Like she became a licensed mortician and was really moving forward with making that be an additional stream of revenue for the family. So he did have viable options. It's really sad that he chose otherwise, specifically because he has 2 young sons.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, it is unfortunate, and I think we should talk a second about choices. Okay. Now, it's
Oh no.
interesting that again, I'm not dogging the choice. I think we can just learn from the choice. Look, you marry a man who went to prison for fraud, and guess what? He goes back to prison later for fraud. And then you have to also ask a couple of hard questions about the relationship. Number one, I think that Phaedra has to ask herself, was she also the victim of fraud? Did she let this pretty man with a winning smile fraud her into supporting him for several years while he's engaging in criminal activity and living off of her hard work and success? And then the other hard question you have to ask, which goes even deeper than that, is did she know? Was she potentially involved? How do you sleep with somebody every day and not have a clue that they're engaged in one of the most complex financial schemes imaginable? I'm not saying that we know the answer to those questions, but I think those are questions that any normal person should ask.
Well, I definitely think that there's a huge loss for Phaedra, whether or not she knew about him doing something kind of shady or versus all of the details. They still made a decision to build a family together. on the reality series, we see, chronicled her attempts to try to get him into having different career opportunities. It's really hard when we talk about reforming and changing your life. People are really, it's really about hope. And I don't want to say that Apollo was in a hopeless situation, obviously, because on the surface, it seems like things are great. But I feel like inward, his behavior is a great example of how he didn't really have hope for living a certain lifestyle based on doing things the honest way. So when I look at that, I think he didn't believe in his own mental abilities, his own business abilities, his own abilities to do things, the legal way, that may require a little bit more hard work, but also require diligence, smarts, perseverance, and I think that that's the thing. I feel like he didn't have hope that by any other means he could have a certain level of success. And I also think, we live in a flashy society. I don't want to dismiss that, where people want to ball immediately, and sometimes we learn that, you take the quick win. But overall, I do think it's a loss for both parties. Phaedra loses a husband and a father, a partner in the household, and he's losing his freedom. And this is all because of the poor choices that he made.
Okay, well, Tia, you know me. I advocate extensively for second chances for prison inmates. In fact, I think we have too many people in prison, but people sometimes mistake that for me believing that no one deserves to go to prison. I don't feel that way. I don't have a problem with people paying their debt to society. I just want to make sure that what they paid matches what they took.
That's right.
And sometimes we force people to overpay. And if you look at Apollo, I'm not going to say that I know this man or know why he did what he did, and it could have been hopelessness, but I don't see him as the typical, down and out, completely marginalized ex-convict. He had a wife that was making lots of money in the national spotlight. He had plenty of opportunities to meet every big shot baller that imaginable. He had access to experts that could help him.
Right, but resilience.
Right. There you go. There you go.
In a very different way.
There you go. Right. But so you
access to certain things, but you don't have inner resilience. It's so hard to compete.
Right. But see, and that's where we perfectly agree. I don't think it's hopelessness that maybe kept him from made him do this. I think it might be a lack of discipline. Sometimes it's easier to take the shortcut than it is to take the long route. And so I would say that the resilience that it takes to build this massive criminal empire is the same resilience that it would take to build a massive empire that isn't criminal. The difference is that the money may not come as fast. It may not be as tall. And what I would say, putting Apollo to the side for a second, is the financial lovemaking lesson that I get from this is twofold. One, you got to watch out for who you marry, who you spend your life with. Your biggest investment you make in your life is probably who you choose to spend your life with. I have seen people marry individuals who have made their lives things they could never have been, like literally took them to the next level. And I have seen people marry individuals who have destroyed their lives. I know a woman who was a prominent professor who was murdered by her husband in a murder-suicide, and she had 2 little children because her husband was a loser. He was constantly jealous of her success, so he just said, "I'm going to kill both of you, or I'm going to kill us both."
Yeah.
Right? But then you look at a guy like I'll give Jay-Z credit, for example, for choosing to marry Beyonce. He could have married any woman out here, but he saw himself with the chance to align with a queen that was going to elevate and boost his career and secure his empire and his legacy, and he did it. So as much as I might critique Jay-Z on other areas, I got to give him credit for that.
Okay, so let me say this. I have in no way give people a pass for bad behavior, and I'm in agreement with you on serving fair debt for the crime that you've committed. However, I think we are missing something major when we don't consider the backstory before meeting Phaedra. So when I hear Apollo speak and when we hear people talk about his past life, we know that he wasn't prepared to be a legitimate success. So when you are thrown into an environment where you can put a suit on and you can look the part and you can be handsome, but if you don't feel prepared, if you don't have the confidence, if you don't have the hope in yourself to overcome the trauma that you've experienced before without being given those tools, it's hard to just tell everyone to swim. Some people will be able to do it. Those are the top 10. right? And some people may do a little, like may do something small and dirty, but a lot of people will fail. You have to be prepared. You can't just throw someone in the pool and say, hey, oh, now you're at the Intercontinental, luxury pool. You should be able to swim. If you couldn't swim in the community pool, how the hell are you going to swim there? So he didn't have.
So you're saying so you're saying that the issue is either need or greed, right? Did he need to do this, or was he doing it because he's greedy? I don't think anybody knows.
You're summing it up to need a greed.
Right. You're saying it's need. I'm saying it's greed because I'm saying that it very likely could have been greed because I think that think about it like this. You've got a spouse who is making lots and lots of money, maybe millions of dollars, pushing her career. She's a successful lawyer. She's on television. You're not wanting for anything. You don't need money. You're not scrapping to provide for your family. What you're doing is assuming that Phaedra did not know what was happening, you are engaging in deceptive activity, cheating on your wife, committing financial adultery, basically, because you're jeopardizing everything that you both work for, everything that she has, in order to engage in criminal activity.
But we judge the crime and we don't look at what led up to the behavior. So when we just deal in terms of punishment, Apollo's going to serve his time. But when we deal with how do we prevent other boys, other women, other girls from becoming Apollos, it's really about giving them an inner hope, giving them the fortitude to believe that they can compete when they are given the opportunity. And that is why people fail. So do you think I'm not saying that Apollo may not be greedy. I'm not saying, I don't know. But what I'm saying is I also know a big part of trauma, a big part of the hopelessness of not being trained to succeed, of not believing in yourself that's a major reason why.
So you don't think it took confidence and a lot of self-belief, if you will, to commit a financial fraud of that complex nature, of that magnitude. I mean, to me, a low confidence person is going to go steal a loaf of bread. They're not going to try to steal millions of dollars by defrauding banks. I'm going to finish. Let me finish this. Putting on a suit, walking into banks, signing loans for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, under false names and false corporations, speaking that lingo. That doesn't take confidence. I think it takes a lot of confidence.
Okay, I look at it like this: you can have a woman who. There's a spectrum of what defines a woman's nature, right? You can have a woman who's trained to do, I don't even want to use this analogy because it's actually going to get kind of vulgar, right? At the end of the day, I do agree with you. I think that it does take a certain level of confidence in order to accomplish those types of criminal activities. But what I'm saying is that he did not have the confidence in the right sectors and spheres of his life. And I think that a lot of times when we see people return back to criminal activity, it's because they don't know how to connect the dots. You haven't been taught to say, okay, yes, you can plan this elaborate scheme. Those same skills can be applied to you sitting to a 2-year degree, or you really sitting down and building your personal training business, even if you hit a few bumps in the road. And I think that connecting those dots and allowing people to build that muscle is really the way that we stop people from repeating criminal acts. You have to believe in yourself. Boys, there's nothing you can say, regardless of where you're put, you always knew not. When you were a child, you didn't know that you were smart. You were taught that you were smart. You went through trial and error, and you learned that you had that resilience. When is that muscle built? When you're a teenager. When you're in elementary school and you're a top student, or when you're a teenager and you learn that I have to study a certain way. When you get your first job and you have those bumps in the roads. When people don't have those natural milestones, how can they compete? We're going
to have to agree to disagree on that. I think you're defending Apollo because he's cute. That's what I think. I think if he was fat and ugly, you would not be standing up for this man.
And I say this from not only a personal perspective because of my passion for therapy and self-help, but also because I grew up in neighborhoods where I meet plenty of guys like that. There's only one 50 Cent and one Jay-Z. There are very few men who are able to take these are top performers. Like we look at those analogies and we think, well, everybody should be able to transition that way. These are the best of the best. These are the talented tenth of the hood. right? The average guy is not going to have the confidence to walk into a corporate situation and have a conversation about their budding business. They haven't been built like that.
But he could walk into a corporation and have a conversation about a bank loan that he should get in the name of a
Absolutely, because
fake
he was built
company.
to do that.
But
That's what he's
and
to do.
that's where I just think it's hard to believe that he can. I can sit down with a banker in a suit and talk business lingo if I'm stealing money, but I cannot go into a bank and talk to a banker in a business suit if I'm talking about getting an investment. It just seems to me, or a legitimate
I,
investment, right?
but I think you're also minimizing what the process of being on the good side involves. So it's not just going and sitting and talking to a banker about having this financial plan. It's more complicated than that. But these are things that we take for
But is
granted
it?
because we were bred to do these things. It would be equally as hard for us to live a life on the other side because we weren't taught to do those things. Those aren't innately part of us. But from a financial lovemaking perspective, because I know we have to wrap it up, we get very passionate. I definitely agree with you in terms of who you pick to be your life partner financially, intimately, is the biggest decision anyone will make in their lives. And you want to give people a second chance, but you really have to hedge your bets. And I think the great thing that we see about Phaedra is that she seems like she's strategic to the end. She might have taken a risk with Apollo, but I'm sure that she will be resilient because she was built to win. What do you think, boys?
I won't say much else because I don't want to push it on too long, but I'll just say that I think sometimes things are more complex than they look, and sometimes they're simpler than we want to make them out to be, right? Sometimes we want to make things complex when it's just a matter of somebody saying, why should I work a 9 to 5 at minimum wage or whatever when I could go out here and make more money in a week or in a day than I could in a month on another job, right?
I hear you on
So I'm not going to say that this is what Apollo was thinking. We don't know. There's probably some deep psychological issue there, and I'm in complete agreement with that. But we have to also understand that you have to be very careful, I think, when you go into that space, because remember, every child molester most child molesters were probably molested as children.
that.
Most murderers went through untold trauma before they killed somebody. So the question is, how much do you consider that past when you're thinking about how to deal with the actions being committed by that person right then and there? And at the end of the day, there is something that has to be said about choices, accountability, things like that.
Absolutely.
I know guys who did 20 years in the joint who are struggling, who are on food stamps, and who choose to not go back to prison. And so it's hard for me to feel sorry for this man with amazing good looks who's
Hating on the face.
really
Hating on the
right,
face.
got this famous wife and is stealing money, behind her back, and really tears her down, pretty much might even destroy her career with his choices. So that's where you have to draw the line. But I think everything you said should be taken into account for sure.
I absolutely agree. Now we'd love to hear your thoughts because you see we have a lot of them. Please write in and let us know what you think about this topic. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Financial Lovemaking. Have a great day.
Bye bye.